Hey, what's up and how's it going, everyone? Well, I'm so glad that you have took your time to spend with me right here today on the MRB Wrestling Review Show. I am your co-host, Mike McRock Wilson, and we just saw WWE Friday Night SmackDown. It was a not half bad show, it was alright. There were some superstars on this edition of SmackDown that I felt that really stood out, and I will get to them later on, such as Daniel Bryan, Antonio Cesaro, Big Show, and a couple other people. And with that being said, the show kicked off with a town hall meeting when Triple H was in the ring with Brad Maddox, the general manager of Raw, and the general manager of SmackDown, Vicky Guerrero. And what was interesting was that, throughout that first segment, we see Triple H wanting superstars to speak up and speak their minds, and they had a microphone on the center stage with everyone around it, and some superstars thought their opinions on different things, such as Cody Rhodes being fired. Damien Sandow was the first to speak out about about how he felt when Cody Rhodes got fired, as well as other superstars such as Kofi, Kingston, 3MB, and Rob Van Dam and Heath Slater. So I like that that these superstars spoke out, but in the same time, nothing was directed at Triple H, saying that you are abusing power, you're not giving Daniel Bryan what he deserves and what's bad or good for business, etc., etc. No one's lashing out at Triple H, and I like that because there's probably not a lot of people that watch SmackDown, and there's probably more people that watch Raw more than SmackDown. But just to have that element to that story of someone foreshadowing to lash out at Triple H really added to that story, because it creates suspense of to who will be the first person to come out and say something towards Triple H about what he has been doing since he's been COO of the WWE, since he took over and pedigreed Daniel Bryan at SummerSlam. So with that being said, it was a really interesting direction to see where that was going. And also, the only thing I'm nitpicking about that segment was that, we see, like I said before, Vicky Guerrero and Brad Maddox in the ring with Triple H, and their position in the WWE has really faded due to that Triple H is acting as the owner and the one making matches, and really the top authority figure, and the other two people that were in the ring was kind of not necessary for them to be there. But really what you get out of it is that they are the ones that are working for Triple H. So Triple H is the guy that's really running the show. And he made, like I said, a few matches. One he made was Kofi Kingston gonna go one-on-one in a non-title match against the Intercontinental Champion Curtis Axel, which I'll get to later on, as well as making a match between Daniel Bryan and any member of the Shield. So this is foreshadowing what could be maybe Dean Ambrose facing Daniel Bryan based on what happened on Monday Night Raw, and I will also get to that later on as well. Also on the show, Triple H also made the match, and what I really like about this SmackDown was that there was that the first two segments created great flow, as well as the last two, and I'll get to those later on. And when Triple H made the match for Rob Van Dam, when he spoke up, he was going to face Randy Orton, and then out comes Randy Orton. It just created good flow, throughout the show. And with that being said, Randy Orton went one-on-one with Rob Van Dam in a non-title match. And here's the interesting thing: even though RVD lost this match against Randy Orton, it was one of those situations where the loss usually when someone loses a match to anyone who's number one contender for the world champ, it hurts them in some way, shape, or form. But with RVD, it really doesn't hurt him because he's a guy that doesn't need the world heavyweight championship going into Night of Champions. But at least it's something for him, for Alberto Del Rio to go over for. So with that being said, it's a weird but interesting situation. And also that Del Rio, that after the end of the match, Del Rio comes in and cheap shots Rob Van Dam, just to add, to the story of, this build-up between these two guys for the World Championship. And I'm cool, I'm fine with that. It's just that RVD, I don't think is the right person to go for the World Championship. Dolph Ziggler should be in there, going for the World Championship. And speaking of Dolph Ziggler, he went one-on-one with Ryback. And I'm nitpicking again. The only thing I don't like about Ryback is the way he comes out. He has this swagger and comes out as this big bully like the millionth time. And the funny thing is, even though Ryback winning over Dolph Ziggler doesn't really help his career, the thing that bothers me is that the WWE doesn't know what to do with Ryback, and winning over Dolph Ziggler doesn't benefit from his career for the WWE, so there's really no point of him coming out winning or losing this match. There's just no point because the WWE needs to do something with Ryback. Put him in a situation where it makes sense. Have Rey Mysterio, stand up for the bullies and come in and face Ryback. That would be the direction I would go in. Or Ryback picks on the wrong guy and gets what he deserves. Gets what he has coming, karma. Right? So with that being said, the situation Ryback was in was just not really necessary for him to be in. And with that being said, with Dean Ambrose at ringside, who's actually pretty good at commentary, I'll give him that, and he comes in and costs Dolph Ziggler the match, so there's another thing happening here as well. And the only thing I don't like about this is that this is a step back for Dolph Ziggler if indeed he does face Dean Ambrose for the United States Championship, because, like I said before, he should be competing for the World Heavyweight Championship. And in the same time, I think Dolph Ziggler and Dean Ambrose will actually put on a good wrestling match at Night of Champions for the US title, and it's someone that Dean Ambrose can benefit from because Dolph Ziggler has been the World Heavyweight Champ, and so he can, so that Dean Ambrose can benefit for going over a former World Heavyweight Champ. Makes sense in a way. So with all that being said, I think it's a weird situation that Dean Ambrose and Dolph Ziggler has been put in, because the fact that Dolph Ziggler needs to go for the World Heavyweight Champ, and the fact that Dean Ambrose is getting a good push, but they're using Dolph Ziggler to do it, is a weird thing to happen on SmackDown, on what happened on Friday night. Also, Kofi Kingston went one-on-one with Curtis Axel in a non-title match. And what's interesting thing is that, pay attention to Paul Heyman. The little things he does at ringside are just absolutely amazing, even after the match. And it was actually a pretty good match, going into it. And the Kofi style of high flying and Curtis Axel's style of ground and pound really meshed well for this match. And the way Kofi won was kind of like really weird. It was like almost unexpected, but you kind of was like took back and stepped back and think, whoa, that kind of threw me off guard, but it was pretty cool. So with that being said, I'm looking for, a championship match to take place, probably on Raw, where he does face Kofi Kingston for the United States Championship. And just to add to the story of CM Punk trying to get his hands on Paul Heyman. So I think that, if Curtis Axel does face Kofi Kingston on Raw next week for the Intercontinental Championship, it would be a nice little subplot for Sirens. It would be a nice, interesting point plot for CM Punk to probably come in and interfere in that match, only to have maybe Curtis Axel win over Kingston or get disqualified and etc. Stuff happens like that. It might go that way. We might have an Intercontinental Championship next week. I think it should be, because we haven't seen Curtis Axel defend his title for the past few weeks now. So I think that having a Intercontinental Championship match on the night before Night of Champions should be needed, only because he should bring that title to prominence. That's the reason why. And what I like throughout that match with Kofi Kingston and Paul Heyman, Kofi Kingston and Curtis Axel, is that, like I said, the little things. After the match, you see Paul Heyman slipped his hands from the Intercontinental Champion. You see it drop, and Paul Heyman just told that story pretty well. Also last night, Brie Bella went one-on-one with Naomi. And I thought, okay. As soon as it came on and I saw those two in the ring, where's this heading, right? And I wasn't really a fan of this match to begin with. And I like what happened was that earlier backstage, we see AJ Lee, kind of gathering the troops, so to speak, with Layla, Alicia Fox, and Oksana, try to get them to do something for this match. And what happened was that the result was, all three of them coming out and attacking these divas, because, these divas are on that new reality show, Total Divas, with the whole glamorous thing, and they're jealous that they are not on, and they come out and attack. It's reasonable. It makes sense. So with that being said, really the one diva that stood out from that bunch is the champ AJ Lee. And I think that if AJ Lee loses that Divas champ at Night of Champs, I think already that championship will be devalued. And it's a shame, because that Divas championship should be valued, and that and the right challengers should be competing for the title, and in the right proper way. I don't like the fact that they have this Total Divas show, even though it does give them exposure for the media, etc. It's a step back, because they should be focused in the wrestling aspect, in the ring. I'm just old school, plain and simple. So with that being said, I don't see the title changing at Night of Champs. Also last night, we see the Usos, Jimmy J. Uso, going in a tag team match against the Real Americans, Antonio Cesaro and Jack Swagger. And what was interesting about that match was that Antonio Cesaro, I felt, was the standout in that match. That leapfrog he pulled over Jack Swagger onto the Uso with the double stomp and a nice touch, as well as how the match ended when the Uso came flying off the top rope and Antonio Cesaro catching him into an uppercut. And the pop from the crowd was pretty good, to say the least. And so, those little things like that from Antonio Cesaro, we need more of that from him. And I think if the Real Americans does split, Antonio Cesaro will be the one who will probably go forward in his career, whereas Jack Swagger's career might just stay where it is. And it's kind of sad to see that, because Jack Swagger, he is an All-American American for a reason. And with that being said, with the tag team championships, not having a contenders at Night of Champs kind of also devalues the tag team champs because of that pay-per-view name. If they want to bring that Night of Champions pay-per-view to prominence, have Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins defend their titles against whoever it may be. Please, just make it happen. Also, we see the Big Show in a 3-on-1 handicap match against 3MB, but really, 3B was the handicap. Let's face it, that match was over before it already started because of what happened backstage. We see Triple H, trying to, motivate Big Show, to take out 3B because 3B is the problem when really Triple H is the problem. He's the issue that Big Show has with. So with that being said, that really, motivated Big Show to, come out and just destroy everyone, which he did. His facial expression just told the whole story. Like I said, that match was already over before it was started, and he just came out and annihilated 3MB. So with that being said, I like what's going to happen now with the Big Show. I think this rivalry with Big Show and Triple H hopefully goes somewhere, and it's a nice subplot as well to the Randy Orton and Daniel Bryan feud, because it gives the audience something extra to look forward to on Raw and SmackDown. And the main event was Daniel Bryan going one-on-one with a member of the Shield when Roman Reigns stepped up to the plate, only to have when Roman Reigns stepped up to the plate, Seth Rollins cheap shot on Daniel Bryan, and now it's legit. We got Daniel Bryan and Seth Rollins again. That happened on Raw, which was basically a preview of what happened on Raw. The only difference was Daniel Bryan got a clean finish and really just took out all members of the Shield in that one night by himself. And that alone really spoke volumes for Daniel Bryan. And what really made it worthwhile is that when Daniel Bryan came out, the second his music hit, you hear the audience roar. That pop was so huge I almost didn't hear his music hit. That's how big that pop was when Daniel Bryan came out to the ring. And I just stepped back, and that just left me speechless. And it's moments like that where you just sit back and think, this guy's going to get a huge payoff. What happens when Daniel Bryan takes that title from Randy Orton? How big is the audience's reaction going to be when he does defeat Randy Orton for the WWE champ? It's going to be endless, to say the least. And what I really liked about that match was that both guys really, delivered in that match. Even though Seth Rollins was acting as the jobber, both guys, him and Daniel Bryan, put on an incredible performance in the main event. And even though we got that tease, from Dean Ambrose attacking Daniel Bryan on Raw, we never really quite got that on SmackDown. So hopefully on Raw it does happen. Daniel Bryan versus Dean Ambrose, and I think those two guys will put on an incredible match if indeed it does happen next week on Monday Night Raw, going into Night of Champs. And I think Dolph Ziggler could play a part in that scenario as well. And that was my review of WWE Friday Night SmackDown. For the MRB Wrestling Review Show, I am Mike McRock Wilson. Get plenty of rest and always do your best.